Mr. Charles Brown, we went back to ancient Rome in last week's conversation to talk about gladiators, the execution trap. Um, this week, I want us to talk about some of the blockers that we mentioned that people get put into when they take our free assessment that we're advertising on our site, right? So if you can go to therealcharlesbrown.com, and if you feel like you're stuck in a project management position and you're not feeling like you're making any progress in your career, you can take Charles's free assessment, which will it's powered by AI, and we will identify some of the main blockers that project managers typically face. Charles, what are some of those 4 or 5 blockers that project managers usually face in their careers?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, categorically speaking, there's kind of some big ones there. They're called different names outside of our particular assessment, So we've kind of maybe renamed 2 or 3 things just for our purposes, right? People might recognize them as imposter syndrome, or things like that, self limiting, self sabotage, those types of things, right? Those are deep psychological ones. Let's keep it kind of more on a professional scale. And so the couple that we've created as we have an organizational dependency trap, right? Which is where you become so dependent on the organization to tell you who you are and what you do that you kind of lose the ability, or don't ever really develop the full ability to make your own decisions and make your own impact and bring your own skills and your own talents to full bear for the organization. So that's a limitation of the organization. Maybe they're not sophisticated enough, they're not mature enough for what you can bring. I experienced this trap at one organization who shall remain nameless, where I wanted to do a whole lot more than they really cared to do. Their business was really focused and really basic, and they just, no, we make widgets. We're just going to keep making widgets, right? And I'm like, well, but we can improve the process to make better widgets. No. We just want to make widgets, right? So that's kind of an organizational dependency trap. There's also a strategic access trap. And the
Mm-hmm.
strategic access trap is there's a glassy, like, you're not invited. There's no one either existing within the organization who can help you strategically move yourself around. I mean, a big part of progressing into more challenging roles and more leadership roles and more strategic roles is having a mentor and having someone who sees your potential, even if it's one person. So there's that strategic asset trap where you don't have that person. You can't get to that place because there's no one who really advocates for you, or who can get you permission to be in the right rooms, right? So the other is a bit of an, this is the much more common, right? Which is execution identity trap, which is a performance identity, right? Again, back to
Mm-hmm.
some real basic psychological stuff. It's a performance identity. It's an execution identity trap, which is no, Charles. I am what I do. I don't understand the execution trap, because if I don't do these things, then what do? I'm measured based on the number of widgets I make per hour. If I stop making widgets, I have no value. So it really is an internal value equation that you really need to reassess and recognize that there's more things to bring. And this is really heavily addressing that kind of area, leans really heavily on understanding your leverage, right? A big part of the execution trap in general is, good for you, you can do this work, but you're the choke point. You're the weak point, because your execution is limited to how much you can physically do. Right. So understanding that, wait, I can actually do more for the organization if I step back from execution and look for leverage points. That's a big part of that one. The trusted but not elevated trap
Mm-hmm.
is back to last week's conversation about the gladiator. Right. So you are absolutely indispensable and invaluable to the organization as that executor. And so you're trusted and you're deeply valued and you're loved, but you're trapped by that role. So you're not elevated, right? Trusted, but not elevated. We
I
can't afford to lose you. Nobody else can do that job but you. So we have some responsibility, and we have a dual role in that. The organization should have taken some steps to make sure that they do enough development that there's someone to backfill you. But at the same time, we had that responsibility as well to share that knowledge and or push that organization to say, hey, I don't want to do this job forever. Right.
Right.
At a minimum, I hope you're having at least one performance review a year, if not 3 or 4. But at least once a year, you should be having a conversation that says, no, actually, everything's not great. I don't want to do this job for the rest of my life. I want this role, right? And so how do I get to that role? But that's another strategy. A fifth one is invisible operator. Invisible operator is that person that just comes in, puts their head down and gets the work done. Nobody even notices that they're there, right? That can be a badge of honor for a certain personality type, which is like, yeah, I'm doing my work. This place would crumble without me, but it's all internal. And so the rest of the organization doesn't even really know you exist. Never mind, see your true worth and your true value. And then finally is strategically underutilized. So again, this is part of that dual role between you and the organization. You're strategically underutilized, which is the organization doesn't really recognize, oh, I didn't know you had this experience. I didn't know you had this certification. I didn't know you knew how to do those things. I mean, we hired you to do this role, but nobody ever really looked at the full, complement of what you bring to bear. So those are the big 6 that we have defined right now. And obviously each one of those has different indicators, which is why the assessment works. Right? Let's talk about your career. Let's talk about what your day-to-day looks like. And then we can help help diagnose which one of those categories is most likely. It's probably a little bit of each, let's be honest, but predominantly there's one that's really the blocker right now. And that's where our conversation starts, which is why I only ever start from diagnosis. I never start with a prescription. Right? We've done this a couple of times where you've said, hey, what should somebody do? And I'm always a little shy to say what you should do without knowing your situation and your particulars. So that's what the assessment does. Like, okay, which one of these 6 is most likely, is most predominant right now? Let's go after that one first. And obviously there's different strategies that go along with
that. I really want to ask you, because we've talked about leverage, and you've even brought up the gladiator story and using leverage, but you haven't actually addressed if there's a potential scenario where leverage can actually hurt you. Like, is there a potential scenario where the organization resents you for being irreplaceable? Can that happen?
Yeah, well, yeah, right. So there's definitely a political component to all of this. And I myself have gotten a little bit too much ego, right? And just automatically assumed, well, I'm bigger than this role. I'm better than this. And therefore, all I really need to do is speak up and advocate for myself. And they too will see my value and naturally accommodate all my career aspirations. Right. And that's where this becomes political, where it's not really enough to just point out the problems or to vent and say, I want more, I deserve more, I'm capable of more, because there is, an agreement. You're working under an agreement with that organization. And your part of the equation is that you provide a particular set of skills and a particular value to that organization. So the reason that this becomes political is you can't just step out of your role. The most obvious problem with that being, who's going to do the job that you're doing right now? This is why people who are fantastic executors, who are doing more work than everyone else, aren't the ones to get promoted. They aren't the ones to get selected to do anything, because they literally don't have enough bandwidth to do anything else. They're keeping so many plates spinning that I bet you they have a bank of time off and vacation hours just sitting there rotting, because they literally can't afford to step away from their role to even enjoy a vacation. And when they are on vacation, they're taking their phone, they're checking their email, especially in this field of project management and project execution. Okay. So there's that piece where you become the gladiator, where you're way too important, way too valuable. And if you haven't mapped that out with the organization, you can't just walk in one day and go, you know what, I'm fed up and I'm going to move up to this thing. Those people leave organizations. They don't work that out. They don't find a solution within that organization. They leave that organization.
Mm-hmm.
And then all those plates come crashing down. That organization has to rebuild, blah, blah, blah. It's bad for both. And then you go to a new organization and you sit down, you want to interview for this leadership position or this management position. It's like, tell us about your day. What do you do? Well, I do this and I do this and I do this and I do this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any demonstration of leadership? Tell us about a time when you mentored someone. Tell us about a time when and they don't have that experience. Now they've created a catch-22.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very rich, deep topic there, which is hard to kind of summarize in little sound bites. But
we'll dive deeper into it perhaps next week. Like we said earlier, you can go to therealcharlesbrown.com and take this free assessment and see under which category you fall under. And if it really spikes any curiosity inside of you, if it brings out any insights that you find interesting, Charles will actually hop on a call with you for free to go over the results with you and see if we can be of any help, helping you shape and move through your career. Charles, appreciate your time as usual, man.
Yeah, man. Take care.
Bye.